You've been cleaning out your grandmother's house for 3 days. It's the kind of work that's both simpler and harder than you expected. Simpler because most of it is just decisions. Keep, donate, discard, repeated several hundred times across rooms that smell like lavender and old paper and the specific stillness of a life that has recently stopped. Harder because every object has a weight that has nothing to do with its physical mass. A coffee cup, a pair of reading glasses folded on a nightstand, a calendar on the kitchen wall still open to the month she died, appointments written in her handwriting for dates she never reached. You've been doing okay. Methodical, respectful, the way you do things when you're trying not to feel them too much. And then you find the diary. It's not hidden. That's the thing that will stay with you. It's not hidden. It's in the bottom drawer of her writing desk, beneath a stack of letters, inside a box that wasn't even locked, as if she never expected someone to look, or as if she always expected someone to find it, and somewhere in the 40 years since she put it there she stopped being sure which one she wanted. You open it. You read the first page. And the house, the lavender, the coffee cup, the reading glasses, all of it becomes the background to something that is going to change the shape of everything you think you come from. Level 1. Who you are. Let's establish something first. You are not someone who has ever had reason to question where you come from. Your family is comfortable. Not obscenely wealthy, not the kind of wealth that announces itself, but the settled, generational kind that expresses itself in paid-off houses and good educations and the quiet assumption that things will, by default, be fine. Your grandparents built a property development company in the 1970s that your father eventually took over and grew. You grew up in a house with a garden. You went to a good university without debt. You have, by any honest measure, been the beneficiary of a head start. You've thought about this, you're not oblivious. You know not everyone starts where you started. You've had the conversations, held the correct opinions, made the appropriate acknowledgments. You've told yourself that your family earned what they built, that your grandfather was a hard worker who took risks and made smart decisions and built something from the ground up. That last part is still true. What the diary is going to tell you is what the ground was made of, and whose it was before your grandfather decided it was his. Level 2. What the diary says. Your grandmother's name was Eleanor. She was 26 when she wrote the first entry. The year was 1974. The handwriting in the early pages is careful, deliberate, the handwriting of someone choosing words with awareness that they might outlast the moment. She writes about your grandfather, whose name was Thomas, with a mixture of love and unease that she never quite resolves. She writes about the business, about the first property they developed, a site on the eastern edge of the city that Thomas acquired in what she describes, initially, as a fortunate negotiation. You keep reading. The fortunate negotiation takes 30 pages to fully reveal itself. The short version. There was a family, a man named Joseph Adeyemi, his wife Clara, and their 2 adult children. They had owned a plot of land on the eastern edge of the city for 22 years, purchased legally, built on, lived on, a small commercial laundry that employed 6 people from the surrounding neighborhood. Thomas wanted the land. Joseph didn't want to sell. What follows in your grandmother's diary is written in the careful language of someone who knows what they witnessed and has spent 50 years finding ways to describe it that don't require her to use the words that fit. Pressure on the business license. A health inspection that found violations that weren't there the week before. A loan called in ahead of schedule by a bank whose manager, Eleanor writes, had been to dinner with Thomas twice that month. A legal dispute over a boundary line that cost the Adeyemis 2 years and most of their savings. And at the end of it, a sale, technically voluntary, price below market, signed under conditions that Eleanor describes only as Joseph looked very tired. Thomas got the land. The Adeyemis got enough money to leave and not enough to start over. Your grandfather broke ground on his first development 6 weeks later. Level 3, the full shape of it. You sit on your grandmother's floor for a long time after that. Because here is what you understand, once you've read far enough. That first plot of land was not just one transaction. It was the foundation, literally. The capital from that first development funded the second acquisition. The second funded the third. By 1981, Thomas had 7 properties. By 1989, when your father joined the business, there were 23. The company your father grew and that paid for your education and your house and your head start, all of it traces back in a clean, unbroken financial line to land that was taken from a family through a process that was technically legal and functionally something else. There is a word for what your grandfather did. Several words, depending on which framework you use. Eleanor never writes any of them. But she knew. She knew from the beginning, and she stayed, and she built a life in the house that the land paid for, and she put the diary in an unlocked drawer, and she died at 81 with the lavender and the reading glasses and the calendar with the appointments she never kept. And now you're sitting on her floor with the full shape of it in your hands. The house you grew up in. The university you attended without debt. The company your father runs. All of it downstream of one transaction in 1974 that a family named Adeyemi has never recovered from. You close the diary. You sit in the silence. And then the part of you that is practical and frightened and very much your grandfather's descendant starts asking the question you don't want to ask. What do you do with this? Level 4. The people it leads to. You don't put the diary back. You take it home. You spend 3 days reading it twice more and doing something you never expected to do with a week of your life. You research the Adeyemi family. Takes longer than you think and less time than you feared. Joseph Adeyemi died in 1991. Clara in 2003. Their son, Michael, is 71 and lives 2 hours from you. You find this through a combination of old business records and the kind of careful public searching that feels increasingly like something you shouldn't be doing and can't stop doing. Their daughter, Ruth, died in 2019. Michael has children. 3 of them. One of them, a woman named Diane, roughly your age, has a professional profile that mentions she works in urban planning. There is a particular quality to that detail that sits in you strangely. The granddaughter of a man whose land was taken by your grandfather grew up to work on land use and development policy. You don't know what to do with that symmetry. You're not sure it means anything. You're not sure it doesn't. You find no evidence that any member of the Adeyemi family knows what happened in 1974 in the specific way your grandmother's diary describes it. The public record shows a property sale, a business closure, a family that moved and rebuilt imperfectly at a lower level than the one they'd reached. They don't know what you know. You know what you know, and your father doesn't. Level 5, your father. This is the part that stops you. Not the history. The history is terrible, but it's 50 years old and the people who made it are dead. What stops you is your father. Your father is 63 years old. He is a decent man. You believe that, not blindly but based on evidence accumulated over a lifetime of watching him. He coaches youth football on weekends. He remembers the names of people's children. He has, as far as you know, conducted his business and his life with genuine integrity. He also has no idea that the company he has run for 30 years was built on something his father did in 1974 that cannot be cleanly described. If you tell him, you are not just handing him information. You are handing him a version of his own life that he will have to rebuild his understanding of from the foundation up. You are telling a 63-year-old man that the thing he is most proud of, what he built, what he maintained, what he passed on to you, has a crack in it that runs all the way down. You know your father. You know what this does to him. You also know that not telling him is a choice too. It's not neutral. It's not nothing. It is an active decision to let him continue in a version of his life that you now know is incomplete. And it means carrying this alone. For how long? Forever? Level 6, your options. You have been sitting with this for 10 days now. And the options have clarified into 4. Option 1, bury it. You put the diary somewhere it won't be found. You tell no one. You go back to your life, the house, the job, the inheritance that is coming to you through a company that your father will eventually pass on. You are not the one who did this. You were born into it. You didn't choose it. The people directly responsible are dead. The damage is 50 years old. Burying it changes nothing that has already happened. You know what burying it costs. You will know what you know for the rest of your life. Every time you benefit from the company, every dividend, every inheritance, every comfort that traces back to that original transaction, you will know. And knowing without acting is its own kind of choice. Option 2. Tell your father and stop there. You bring it to him. You show him the diary. You let the information land in the family and you allow whatever accountability looks like at the family level to take whatever shape it takes. Maybe your father decides to act. Maybe he can't face it. Maybe it breaks something between you that doesn't recover. But you are not alone with it anymore, and the decision about what to do next belongs to more than just you. The risk, your father buries it for you. And now you've handed the weight to someone else without resolving anything. Option 3. Find Michael Adeyemi. You go to the source. You find the man whose father's land started all of this, and you tell him what you know. You give him the diary. You give him the documentation you've found. You give him the full picture, and you let him decide what he wants to do with it. This option terrifies you most because it is the most honest and the least controlled. You don't know what Michael Adeyemi does with the information. You don't know if he wants financial restitution, which would mean the company, which would mean your father's life's work, which would mean everything downstream. You don't know if he wants to go public. You don't know if he wants nothing except to finally understand what happened to his family. You don't know. And that not knowing is the price of the only option that actually faces the thing directly. Option 4. Make it right without telling anyone. You are not without resources. The company is not yet yours, but your position in it gives you certain structural knowledge. There are ways, quiet, undocumented, technically legitimate, to ensure that value flows in the direction of the Adeyemi family without anyone knowing why. An anonymous charitable structure. An investment in Diane's professional work. A contribution that doesn't explain itself. It's not justice. You know it's not justice. Justice would require telling the truth, and truth has consequences you cannot fully predict or control. But it is something. It is the guilty conscience finding a shape that it can live inside. The question is whether a guilty conscience finding a comfortable shape is repair, or just a more expensive version of burial. Level 7. What inheritance actually means. Here is the thing about inherited wealth that nobody explains to you when you're growing up inside it. You don't just inherit the money. You inherit the decisions that made it. Every transaction, every choice, everything done and left undone by the people whose name you carry, you inherit all of it. The pride and the shame arrive in the same package, and nobody hands you an itemized list. Most of the time this doesn't matter in any practical sense. Most inheritances are clean enough, or the unclean parts are far enough back that they've been laundered by time and distance into something that requires serious effort to trace. You can live your whole life in a house built on uncomfortable history and never have the diary find you. But it found you, not because you went looking, because your grandmother put it in an unlocked drawer and then ran out of time to decide what she wanted you to do with it. Or maybe she decided exactly what she wanted. Maybe the unlocked drawer was the last decision she made. A woman who spent 50 years not saying the words, leaving one final door open for someone who came after her. You are the someone who came after. And you are sitting in the specific discomfort of a truth that is yours by accident and your responsibility by choice. The accident is over. The choice is still happening. What does inheritance mean when you know what you know? What does it mean to keep something that was built on something broken? What does it mean to give it back, and to whom, and how much, and is there a version of enough? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the questions you are going to live inside for the rest of your life, regardless of what you decide in the next days and weeks. The diary doesn't tell you what to do. Your grandmother didn't leave instructions. She left evidence. What you do with evidence is who you are. Closing the question. Here's where we leave you. 10 days out from an unlocked drawer. A diary in your possession that your father hasn't seen, that the Adeyemi family doesn't know exists, that is sitting in your home right now while you live the life it indirectly funded. You didn't build this. You didn't choose it. You were born at the end of a chain of decisions that were made before you existed by a man you called grandfather and loved and buried and grieved without ever knowing the full shape of what he was. That's real. The not choosing is real. But here's the thing about being the person who finds the diary. The not choosing ends the moment you open the drawer. After that, everything is a choice. Burying it is a choice. Telling your father is a choice. Finding Michael Adeyemi is a choice. The quiet financial rerouting is a choice. Sitting with the diary and doing nothing while you wait to feel ready is a choice. There is no position in this that isn't a position. So here is the question. The one that outlasts the specifics of this particular story. What do you owe for something you didn't do? And is the answer different when you've been benefiting from it your whole life without knowing? Drop it in the comments, because this one doesn't live in the past. It lives in every family that has ever passed something down without explaining where it came from, which is more families than want to admit it.